everyone to Relationship Real Talk. We are so excited to have Ron Deal on with us today. Welcome,
Yes,
Ron.
sir.
Thank you. It's great to be with you today.
Ron, the real deal. How you doing?
Good. Doing well. Thank you.
That's good. That's
Awesome.
good.
So we had the privilege of seeing your speech, your plenary at NARMI, and we were really intrigued. So tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got involved with family life, and why you're passionate about what you do.
Oh, man. So I've been working in marriage and family ministry for 35 years. And 30 years of that, I've been specifically trying to walk in the space of working with blended families. If you're going to do marriage and family ministry, at least this is the way it felt to me long ago, far away when I was first getting my feet wet, then you need to be able to work with couples in all kinds of situations. You need to work with couples who are dating, engaged, married, maybe later life, empty nest. And then there's parenting, right? Parenting young kids, parenting teenagers, parenting those young adults, all kinds of life situations that people find themselves in. And as a family therapist, I also was working with single parent families and step families. And so I thought we in the local church should be relevant and speak to the needs of these families to build them up so that they can walk with God, so that next generation can come to know all the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, Psalm 78 says. And so why not have a single parent ministry? Why not have a blended family ministry? Well, I was just dumb enough to try to figure that out in a local church, and this was 30 years ago. And all of a sudden I found myself in a space that I was like, there's something here. There's a need. It's important. I started looking around for other people who were doing it. I found like 3 people.
Yeah.
And so we just sort of wandered our way for a few years into that space until it became something. And now for the last 20 years, I've really buckled down and focused on blended family ministry. And today I work with Family Life, which is a large marriage and family nonprofit that has a footprint in over 100 countries around the world. And so we specialize in equipping couples for step family living, and at the same time trying to help leaders and pastors and family educators and premarital counselors. And I do therapy training for therapists to try to help them know how to encourage and help and support the families in their local communities.
That's awesome.
So even with that, do you have a blended family background? Are you?
That's the next question that everybody asks, and you followed suit. So well done. The answer is no. I'm one of those really odd birds who found his passion not because of a personal life experience, but because I kind of got called into this. I found myself sort of stumbling into this space and seeing a need, and just decided I would try to do something as long as I could. And so I tell people, my wife says I'm the male obstetrician of the step family world.
Oh my goodness.
All you got to do is think about that for about 30 seconds. We had 3 children, 3 boys, and we had 3 male obstetricians. Like, why would you do that? Why would you go to a man to try to help you deliver a child who he's never been pregnant? He's never delivered that. Yeah, but he knows something about the process. So I tell people that's all that I do, is help them understand the process and bring other voices and other people who have giftings and talents and can speak to things that I cannot speak to. And we bring those to the table and make them part of the team. And so we just round it out in that fashion. Today we have 20 books, resources, and video series that are available. 20. We have a podcast that 24 a year. We have 2 national events. One of them is a worldwide Livestream event that happens every spring that any church can host on behalf of the blended families in their community. We have Livestream events that are free, some that are paid events. We have training for pastors that is virtual, some of it's in person. It's quite a menu of resources and opportunities, both for couples and blended families and for those who serve them.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I was literally talking to a pastor this week, and he was talking about how he is really trying to get resources for his church to do blended family stuff, which I think is actually pretty cutting edge for churches, because I think a lot of them just think, oh, married and regular family dynamic. But I thought that was really cool that that church was trying to figure out how to start doing that. And I think honestly, he was like, there's like one guy doing this. And I was like, I wonder if it's Ron Deal that he has this book that he's been working from. So it's just really awesome that you provide those resources. And I did want to touch on, you had a super analogy for blended families from COVID. So I wondered if you could talk us through a little bit about that.
Yeah. So just, I'll give you the 5-minute version of that. Whether the world knew it or not, over the last 2.5 years, the pandemic has been teaching everyone what it is to live in a blended family, a little bit of the experience. Sometimes I talk to people and go, I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm a parent. What's the difference between being a parent or a step parent? Oh man, it's the same difference between life before the pandemic and life in the middle of a pandemic. That's how different it is. It's still life. You still go about work and routines and marriage and family and friendships, but you have to do it under certain constraints and in certain ways. There's certain dynamics that are pressing in, and the policies and principles of life are different. You got to walk around with a mask sometimes, and all kinds of strange things. So let's just kind of walk through the pandemic. Back in March of 2020, that's when it hit home for me and us here in the U.S. I mean, one day we're sort of doing life. Hey, there's this thing out there on the other side of the planet. Hey, there's this thing here, and go home and don't come back to work, right? And we all went, what does that mean? So for me and my wife and our youngest son was in college, we all had to come into the same space. My wife was a kindergarten teacher, and overnight she had to figure out how to teach 5-year-olds through the internet with platforms that were not developed, with resources that were left at the schoolhouse, and she's working from our home. Like, how in the world do you do that? That was her task. My task was leading Family Life Blended from my home. My son's task was leaving college and being on campus and having fun, to being in his old bedroom in our house. Now, my wife and I had been empty nest and we're enjoying it while he was away. He comes home depressed, all right? That made us depressed. Like, now we only have so much bandwidth in the house. He's trying to do homework, and when he gets on to do a test, like, nothing can bother that. Well, I've got a Zoom going on in the other part, and my wife's teaching 5-year-olds from another. Like, we had all kinds of mess going on, and that was just our little space.
Right.
We stepped on each other's toes. There's a wall literally behind my office in our home. That's the kitchen wall. Like, somebody's getting ice out of the ice machine. One of the loudest things that can happen while I'm trying to do a podcast. Not working for me, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit like step family living. You walk into this thing and you've got a vision. You're in love with a person. You've got a partner, a friend, and a companion again. Something awful has happened. There's been a loss of significance for everyone. Death of a spouse, a divorce, breakup of a relationship. Kids are affected, adults are expected, parenting has changed now in light of the single parent home, all kinds. It's been an earthquake of a huge magnitude. It's like the onset of a pandemic. And now you're thrust into an environment that you don't know how to navigate, with people you don't want to hang around with necessarily, or they don't want you to hang around with them. And so all of a sudden you're going, how do we do this? Right. That's a common experience for blended families. But here's the thing, fast forward 2.5 years, and we're all sitting here today, and we sort of know the rhythms. Life is sort of lifted a little bit. At least most places have opened up, but not everybody has opened up. Schools just started here in Little Rock, Arkansas. My wife's a teacher. She is in a school, thankfully, that does not have to wear masks. But the old schools she used to teach in are back in masks. You just go, okay, what are the rules? How do we do this? And there's all sorts of opinions, but for the most part, we have navigated the space and we've learned how to do life. Same thing in a blended family. You figure it out with time. You just can't quit. You keep pressing in. You find a new rhythm. You make a mistake, you apologize to somebody and you say, please forgive me. Can we figure out how we can do this now? And over time, you find not only rhythm and process, but you find identity. The biggest challenge that blended families are facing is on day one, they do not have a family identity.
Yeah.
They got different last names, for crying out loud. Like, if that's not a metaphor for the challenge that they're facing. But over time, they find an identity. They develop relationships between step sibling, step parent, and step child. They find their fit, but they have to work through some challenges and eventually they get there. Now, one last little application of the pandemic. When things started opening up, for some in the country, it happened about a year ago. From others, it only started 2 or 3 months ago. Depends on where you live, what the climate and culture and political environment was like. Well, even when that happened, you had some people opening up and other people who were still closed. Restaurants that got open, you could actually go in and sit down and eat. And other places, nope, you just pick up and that's it. Don't bother opening the door, right? Well, that's sort of like some key relationships in blended families. Often the adults are open and they're desperate for the stepchildren to be open. Hey, can I come in and sit down and we have a conversation? Nope. Doors closed to you, buddy. Don't need you in my life. Don't want you that close. Please take me to soccer practice. Please fix my dinner and wash my underwear. But I don't want you coming into my bedroom and talking to me about my life. Like there's boundaries and we have differences. Somebody's open, somebody's closed. Now we got to navigate 6 feet away at wearing a mask. What does that mean to you? Well, to me, it means I can take my mask off and you can come 2 feet away. But to this child, it means 10 feet away and you put on a hazmat suit. And you just have different expectations and desire for closeness and intimacy. And that's a hard space to navigate. If you're a motivated, loving step-parent who desperately wants to have a good relationship with a kid who's saying 10 feet away, hazmat suit, no, thank you, you're discouraged easily. Yeah, of course you are, right? You're struggling to figure out, what do I do? How do I respond? I feel totally rejected and isolated and I'm alone. And so you go to your spouse, the biological parent of the child, and you say, can you help me out with this? And they say, are you telling me my child's doing something wrong? Are you telling me I've been a bad parent to create this from my child? And now all of a sudden, it's not just how do we open up? It's you and I disagreeing about parenting. And now we're on the opposite page. And that puts a distance between you and I in our marriage. And so it just sort of ripples around all the relationships. And those are the challenges that we help people navigate. Sort of like the CDC saying, here's a recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of like your local physician saying, yeah, I know they said that, but why don't you do this? Sort of like, your workplace having some policy about how you're going to do life now in light of the pandemic. We sort of come in and just offer some guidance and say, yeah, these are good practices. These are some things that are probably going to get you in trouble. We want to help you navigate this space. And here's what I've come to believe. Most blended families can not only do it, some people talk about surviving. No, it's not just surviving, it's thriving. You can have a healthy, redemptive, loving family. It takes journey. It takes patience. It takes determination sometimes, but it happens more than often than not. But if you don't have any good guidance, you end up inadvertently making mistakes that make things a whole lot harder. And that's when things unravel. And we want to try to prevent that.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
For sure. And then you started talking about it towards the end a little bit, but I find it interesting that you're stepping into this field. So with that outside looking in perspective, what are some misconceptions people have about blended families?
I think the number one misconception by people who are not part of a blended family and people who are walking into one, it's the same. And it's this, that marrying again for the second time after a divorce, for example, is the equivalent of repairing what was lost. You're not. You're not. You know those little things that people put on the back of their car, the back windshield, where they had a little stick figure of mom and dad and the little kids and the dog? I saw one once where the father was missing. He had been erased, and there was mom and all the kids, and there was a big sign written above saying open position, hiring now, and an arrow pointing towards where the father's, would be.
What?
Now that's really funny, and yet it's really wrong.
Yeah.
You're not marrying their dad.
Yeah.
You're marrying a man who becomes their stepdad. Now he can be a loving presence, a significant influence in their life, a wonderful example of what it is to live well as a man, for example. But you're not replacing biological dad. You're not repairing a nuclear family that had been fractured by something. You are creating a blended family, and the rules are different. It's as different as life before the pandemic and as life in the midst of a pandemic. The rules are different. And if you come in that blind, two things happen. One, you get discouraged fast. Number two, you keep trying to beat your head against the wall of repairing your old family. It has to work the same. For example, the mom thinks the stepdad should act like a dad. Well, he really can't. He can be fatherly. He can be loving. He can build a relationship. The first couple of years, we advise step-parents to focus on bonding and forming a relationship. That's what informs your ability to then be parental. So you connect before you correct. But people who come in and go, oh, I'm the dad now, they start correcting before they've connected. And now it unravels. Now things go upside down. Kids get hurt. You're not my dad. Are you trying to tell me my dad's not important to me? Because that's the implicit message. If I'm your dad, your old dad, he's gone. He's out of the picture. You should ignore. Well, wait a minute. My dad lives over here. I see him 3 days a week, and he's still an active part of my life, and I am deeply loyal to him. Are you suggesting that I should not be loyal to him? Like that just, it backfires in all the wrong ways. So if mom's idea is misguided, it makes mistakes, sets him up as the stepdad, and all of a sudden everything's unraveling and they don't know who to blame. So you're not repairing, you're creating something entirely new. And we're going to help you understand what a step-parent does and what a bio-parent does in light of that relationship. We're going to talk about loss in children and how they deal with loyalty issues as a new step-parent and step-siblings come into their life. We're going to help the bio-mom navigate kids moving between her house and biological dad's house. How do you get along well with a man that for whatever reason you can't love and live with anymore? How do you co-parent? That's what that's really about. All of those dynamics eventually impact the developing family identity of mom, stepdad, and stepchildren. And so it's complex. I always like to say the middle name of a blended family is complex. Blended, complex family. And so we help you make sense of that complexity so you can navigate it well.
Wow. And that sounds like you guys have so many different resources. Like you said, I think you said 20 resources. That's incredible. So tell us a little bit about the ones that, okay, I'm from a blended family. I just got married to someone with kids. What's the first thing I need to know? What is that resource that I need to be looking at today?
So for those who are watching, here you go. The Smart Step Family, that book right there.
Right there.
There it is. And this other book called Building Love Together in Blended Families, I wrote with Dr. Gary Chapman, who's the author of the 5 Love Languages. And those two books are really designed, very comprehensive, and work together to focus and help you understand the journey, the bonding process, parenting and step parenting, even grandparenting, like how do step grandparents, like what's their place and role, and helping them understand dynamics going on so that they can be an asset to the family rather than inadvertently doing some things that make life harder. We talk about navigating money. I mean, think about this for a minute. 2 single parents, they've each got 2 kids or something like that. Probably have 2, 3, 4 bank accounts. If they have any life under them, they've got a 401k. They've got life insurance policies. They've got all kinds of stuff set up. They got a name on a house. They got a mortgage. Boom. Put it all together. Should we do that? Do I put your name on my mortgage? Do we put your name as the beneficiary? What if I die? What happens to my kids? Those are really emotionally laden matters because life has already taught these people marriage sometimes falls apart for whatever reason, death, divorce, whatever it is. And so they're guarded and cautious, and understandably so. How do you navigate that terrain with all that emotion and manage and take care of your money and care for one another, new spouse and children? Like that's stuff that needs a little time and focus. We've got an entire book on that subject matter. That's the kind of thing we help unravel for people. I also just alluded to something else, and back to your question about what's something most people don't quite understand. And it's this, how do I trust again after being hurt?
Oh, wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's just you just sort of say it out loud and you go, right, okay. So you said till death do us part, but your first husband said till somebody new comes along.
Wow.
And you get pushed aside, the emotional pain of that, the devastation of that. Your income's cut in half. He takes half whatever. He moves another place. The kids are upset. They want to see dad. You're feeling like they don't got the full story, and you kind of want to blame dad, but you don't want to do that to your kids. And so, I mean, all kinds of hurt rolls out of that, right? And then life moves on for you, and you find somebody else, and you find this guy, and he seems to be great too. But yeah, so was the last one. And this guy seems to have promises that I think I can trust in. Yeah, but so did the last one. And so there's this little ghost. I call it the ghost of marriage past that
Oh my
sits on that sits on your shoulder and says, now you don't want to go there. Be careful. Give him a little bit of you, but don't give him all of you. Tell him a little bit about how your finances are set up, but make sure you keep something he didn't know about. Have a conversation about parenting your children. And he has some suggestions. And yeah, those are good suggestions. But if you make a shift and your kids get upset about it, you're asking for some trouble from your children for a guy you're not sure is going to be around tomorrow.
Wow.
So let's just ignore his thoughts on parenting. Can you see how that unravels trust, dedication, honesty, vulnerability? Like everything inside you says, no, don't be vulnerable. Well, that's what marriage is.
Yeah.
The intimacy and the beauty that comes in marriage is a result, in part, of dedication and vulnerability. So what do you do with that part of you that's scared to trust? We've got a whole book on that, because I did some research with Dr. David Olson, and we've one of the largest surveys of couples forming blended families, and we found that little piece, we call it the fear factor, that little element predicted with 93% accuracy whether couples in blended families had a wonderful, marvelous, committed relationship or a very poor, difficult, strained relationship.
Wow.
Because trust affects everything. It affects how you do money. It affects how you have sex. It affects how you do parenting. It affects how you think about your usness. And so those little things are sneaky on people. And again, that's just a good example of something we try to help them understand and maneuver through and move beyond.
So keeping it there, because you shared a little bit of perspective of, a woman leaving a relationship, taking half, her responsibilities on that. From a men's side, what are some things that men go through when coming into a blended family?
Yeah, that fear factor thing.
Definitely.
That fear factor thing equally applies to men for sure. But let me just speak to a value for some men, and that is, especially a guy who's a stepdad, and he's a biological dad. Let's think about that for a minute. Imagine this: your dad with your kids. You've had 10, 12, 15 years with them. You know what it is to be dad, to get on the carpet and rough and tumble and have fun and laugh and kid them a little bit and joke them and hug your daughter and all kinds of good stuff for them to come to you and trust you, and for you just really to be able to be a leader in their heart and their life. And so you so desire to be able to do that with your wife's children, your new stepchildren, except one of them is open to that and one of them is still closed. And so you find yourself making good gains with the open child, but the one who says, drive through only. Nope. Restaurant's not open for business for you, buddy. Like you're frustrated. You don't know what to do. You're trying to be a positive influence, but they won't let you. So think about that. In one, 10-minute span of time, standing in your living room, your three kids say, yes, sir, to you. And they're responding to you, and you give hugs and you say, I love you. And stepchild number one is going, hey, this is cool. And you kind of have the side hug thing. It's not as intimate, bear hugs with your own children, but you got the side hug thing going. And then there's this other child who won't give you the time of day. They won't look at you and talk to the hand. That's sort of their posture. Like, how just confusing is that?
Yeah.
Right. And then if you go to church and somebody says, come on, man, we need good leaders in our homes. And you want to be a servant and support and encourage the people in your household, but this kid won't let you. You don't even know what your role is in that space. Right. That's a confusing spot to be in. I mean, the quick little solution to that, actually, there's no solution in the sense that you can't make somebody love you. I know when I say that out loud, that applies to this step parent situation, but just apply that to any relationship. Have you ever had a new coworker and you thought, hey, man, that looks like somebody could be a friend? And you went and loved on them a little too fast, too soon. And they were like, get away from me. You know what? You're weird. I don't want anything. You can't make anybody love you. That's just true of every relationship. So quit trying too hard actually is one of the things we teach people. Quit trying to make them love you.
Yeah.
Come alongside, meet them where they are. We talk about the pace principle. Pace with stepchildren. Let them set the pace. If they want you, or they're willing for you to take them to soccer practice or, help with their homework, that's what you got to start with. You got to meet them where they are. Now, that's a really frustrating principle. So we try to help the step parent and stepdad in that situation understand that that's part of his role. We also help mom go, okay, your job is to not expect too much of your husband as it relates to this child. You got to be point with that child because stepdad really can't take the point when it comes to discipline or consequences or anything like that. And it's really helpful, Mom, if you can just pat him on the back every once in a while and go, hey, look, I see you trying and I appreciate that so much. I know it's frustrating and I just want you to know I appreciate that. Those little things that just say, I'm with you. You're not doing it wrong. We're a team. Let's continue to work on this together.
Wow. And I absolutely love that because I kind of think of it also like you've dated the mom, you've gotten to know her, you've gone through all the steps, you finally figured out that, yeah, we're committed, we want to be together, but now you kind of have to start dating the kids. And you're kind of stuck with them regardless, but you kind of got to start getting to know them, allowing them to let you trust them. They can start relying on you. And then maybe they'll start feeling like, okay, yeah, this guy might work out. This could work. But how interesting that you kind of do have to date the kids in order for them to get to know you enough to feel comfortable with you. That's such an interesting.
It's an evolving process. I tell people all the time, look, you already know a little about this because you have some friendships that, well, they're just sort of, folks you spend a little bit of time with in certain contexts, but you don't share your deepest, darkest secrets with them.
Yeah.
You have other relationships that are lifelong, people you're deeply, deeply committed to, and you would share your deepest, darkest secret with them, and you trust them more than anything. So we all have a range of relationship intimacy. Yeah. And the same thing's true of step parenting. Another analogy, my wife's a teacher. They just started school. As a matter of fact, as we're recording this, second day of school. Well, guess what? Miss Deal is just the teacher to these kids. Like, they don't know her. She doesn't know them. She's in charge in this space, but we don't have to like each other, right? That's how step parenting starts for a lot of people. But by the end of the school year, my guess is there will be quite a bond between teacher and student. And when she says, all right, everybody have a seat and, pick up your pencils, they will obey her at the end of the school year, just like they did today. But it'll be for a totally different reason because they like her, they appreciate her, they value her at a level that they do not today. We all understand this. That's what step parenting is like. Yeah. But if you come in on day one and try to act like the parent you want to demand love and attention and affection, and you want to have parental status, we call it, like a biological parent does, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, that's so good. And we've talked a little bit about, the blended families, but on the opposite spectrum, what is it, live the life, we want to strengthen marriages and families. And that doesn't mean, I don't even think the nuclear family is the normal family anymore. I'd be interested to know how many, those numbers are. Yeah, how many families are blended versus nuclear. So if we're looking at that, we're trying to strengthen all marriages and families. What can we do? What can, people who are interested in doing that work, churches, organizations, what can we be doing to support those families?
Great question. Yeah, the answer is the non-traditional family is the new traditional family. It's true. I've been saying that for a number of years, and the stats hold that up in the U.S., also in the UK, in Australia, in New Zealand, and a number of other places. It continues to be the same sort of pattern. Essentially, less than 25% of families in the U.S. are two-parent biological couple raising their biological kids.
Wow.
The other makeup is singles, adults not married, or singles who have been divorced or widowed, single parents, and blended families. That little collection of non-traditional families is much larger than nuclear traditional families as we tend to think of them.
Yeah.
And so one of the first things I point out to leaders is who are you talking to when you get up and do a marriage conference, when you're doing a marriage workshop or a parenting seminar. I guarantee you a third of the people, if not 40 to 50% of the people in your room are in a complex family environment. Maybe they're foster parents. Maybe they're a step parent, bio parent combination. Maybe it's a single parent who's dating somebody. You've got to think about your audience in new and different ways and speak to those little nuances. So I tell leaders who are doing marriage ministry, for example, you don't have to change everything you do, but you do have to add something for blended family couples that you didn't have in there before.
Yeah.
And it's mindfulness about their circumstances. I've been in marriage and family for a long time, working with a lot of people, and it's just so easy to sort of do the same old thing that we've always done. You kind of have your shtick and you're sticking to it. You know what I mean? And it's not really helpful to people who are going, yeah, but let me put it this way. This is what I hear from people who go to a marriage seminar. They're in a blended family. They come back and they say this. It was sort of like going to China. Like we had to interpret everything and try to make it understandable for our life. It was sort of like hearing somebody babble on about something I could understand about every third word. Like it just didn't make sense to me. I'll go to a parenting seminar. Well, I mean, I tried some of that. Boy, did it backfire. Right. Because that advice is designed for a biological parent who's raising their biological children, not a foster parent or a step parent who's in a context where they're just beginning to develop a relationship with it. They're learning how to connect before they correct. Okay, so we have to diversify our teaching. We have to try to speak to different audiences within our main audience. We have to learn a little bit more about blended families. We have to tool up as educators and people who are trying to make a difference. Churches, my latest podcast was I interviewed 3 teaching pastors about how they've got to change, how they have learned to change the way they preach because of who's in the audience. They've learned not to make assumptions about family, about life. When you say father, that means a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people. How do I help connect to the audience that I'm talking to? How do I be mindful that some people are in a single parent home and they would love to have some help and they just don't relate to some of the things you're saying about couples? It's a great interview as they just sort of wrestle with how do we stay relevant to the people who are showing up every weekend? But we spend a whole lot of time helping churches understand what they can do. I'll just point to a resource, 2 resources actually. One of them is online, study at your own pace. It's called the Certificate in Blended Family Ministry. You can do this from home. $50 I think will get you in, and you can study on your own pace, and it'll really give you the essential basics of blended family ministry. If you want to come in person, every fall we do an event called the Summit on Step Family Ministry. We're getting ready to do it again October 13 and 14, 2022. If you missed that, it's okay. We'll have another one. We have a lot of this on video that you can access online. It's equipping and training for you, no matter who you are, a children's leader or an elder or a teaching pastor or a marriage ministry person. We'll help you understand blended families and then make some leaps into how your local community can be supportive and helpful. One last tip, one last thing I'll just point out. Think about a children's ministry that has, a serial curriculum. In other words, day 2 is built on day 1. Day 3 is built on day 2 and day 1. So you got to come every Sunday so you know what last week was, so you understand what this week is. Well, the vast majority of kids today maybe get to their local church twice a month. Maybe. Often once a month. So what is that experience for them? They walk in and they're lost. They don't know any of the answers. They feel left out. Everybody's looking at them like, who are you and why are you here? Well, you know what? Mom, I don't want to go. I don't want to go anymore. And mom's like, they don't want to go. I don't think I want to go either. I mean, most people don't know our story. And if they did, I'm not really sure if they'd let us come back anyway. So they just drop out. But if the children's ministry is sensitive and every week is built on a new theme and standalone curriculum, all of a sudden you are teaching kids and continuing to connect with them, but not making them feel like they're an outsider.
Yeah.
Those little shifts can have big positive consequence or help blessing for people in complex family situations.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I love that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, I know you started to, but is there anything Family Life Blended is throwing or hosting currently? I know you've mentioned one thing, but is there
we're doing more. Summit on Step Family Ministry is a 2-day in-person event in Phoenix this year in October. But for example, I do preparing to blend training for pastors. Anybody who does premarital counseling.
Yes.
We're helping them go to 2.0. Premarital counseling has not changed in 40 years. And it's all based on dyadic couple enrichment, husband and wife, getting them ready to be married. Well, guess what? What if one of those persons has 2 kids?
Right.
Now you got to get them ready to be a family.
Yeah.
And how do you get the kids ready, not just the couple ready? That's what my latest resource is called, Preparing to Blend. We have a book, a whole video series. Now we do leader training regarding that resource virtually so people can get it. So that'll happen in November. There's a couple of opportunities for that. We have a Women and Blended Families live stream that goes on Facebook and YouTube, and women can jump in, and it's a panel discussion about the topics that are hitting women who are living the step family situations, whether you're a bio mom or a stepmom. Those are just some quick examples of the kinds of things that are easily accessible. Of course, we have all the social media channels with tips every day and little videos that are offered from time to time. Again, online resources that people can dive into a curriculum if they want to do that, and do it in a small group or do it just individually as a couple. It's all available. People can find that. They can come to one of 2 places, familylife.com/blended, familylife.com/blended, or they can come to my personal webpage, smartstepfamilies.com, where it's easy access to live events, anything that's online that they want to find out about.
Awesome.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Definitely want to say thank you for the work that you are doing, because this is people don't think that far into it. Even us not know or thinking about, or maybe the blended family is the majority now. So I feel like that perspective people don't have, and the fact that you're going into it, being able to see it from the outside and actually help people and put them in the right positions. I feel like it is a good testament to your character. So definitely thank you for sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you giving some time and attention to this important subject.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And we hope everybody enjoyed today's podcast, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Remember, we are now offering free classes in Florida through our Healthy Marriage Initiative grant. If you are interested, check out livethelife.org/aim. If you are military and you are interested in learning more about this program, you can reach out to us by emailing ashley@livethelife.org. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you feel educated, encouraged, and empowered to thrive in whatever relationship.